My name is Shauna Dennison. I'm the creative director at Cole & Son Wallpapers. Our new collection, Curio, is a collection of wallpapers based on the minerals and wonderful textures and surfaces that you find in the natural world. I think as designers, you're also always collectors. When I do travel, I do tend to pick up odd bits and pieces, and I'm particularly drawn at the moment to semi-precious stones, minerals, rocks, etc. The collection has all been designed in-house, and we have a very small team of designers. Between us we come up with all the original ideas. In this case, 80% of the collection was designed as brand new wallpapers, and some of the designs are actually taken from our archives. We research the subject matter first. We spend a lot of time drawing and working out how we're going to render the actual specimens, whether we're going to paint them, whether they're going to be hand-drawn, whether they're going to be photographic. And then, most importantly, is working out how those actually translate to wallpaper. Because firstly, it has to repeat, but secondly, it has to actually make a really beautiful wall covering. Colouring is always a really exciting part of the design process, and it's also one that takes quite a long time. What we will do in the studio is we will have a discussion about initial colourings. There is a lot of neutral, which is very important, which we bring into a collection, because we understand that it's not always easy to style existing spaces with more colour. Colour can give a design such a different feel, as we've demonstrated in the photography for this collection, where we've tried to photograph two very different colourways of the same design. The Ingot Design is a smaller version of the design puzzle which we produced for the Geometric 2 collection. We felt that the design structure was a really interesting one, and I also had at home the most amazing piece of pyrite, which is fool's gold. It has these wonderful facets and cubic qualities which lent itself to the wonderful structure that we had for the original puzzle design. So what we've done is we've shrunk it down here and we've turned it into a metallic print. So we have 7 fantastic different facets of different metallics. Next in the collection we come to Quartz. And Quartz again is a mineral-based design. I have some amazing pieces of amethyst, which we drew from for this design. I was also really inspired by an award-winning artist who filled a derelict flat in London with a solution of copper sulfate and then let it drain out and dry. And of course this caused all of the walls and the floors and the ceilings to grow these amazing blue crystals. And I remember thinking at the time, how could we do a wallpaper that does that? I've had it in my head for some years, and this was the perfect collection in which to try it out. In the end, the blue colouring didn't work, but we did do this amazing green kryptonite colouring, which has this fantastic emerald feel and is a real showstopper. The Plume Design is a new design created by one of the artists in the studio. I was very interested in the idea of exploring mark making, especially with brushes. We work a lot on our drawing boards in the studio. We're quite old school, and I think exploring mark making with different tools is really quite an important part of the design process. It enables you to find a language with which to create your design. And so the artist had been working with very subtle brush marks, and we put these together in such a way that they almost became reminiscent of tribal feathers and headdresses. And we came up with this wonderful vertical yet softly horizontal brush marked effect, which in the styling works in many different ways. We have a very moody and dark colouring with these wonderful copper tones, which create a much more intimate and warm setting. And yet we've also done the pale, soft, graphite grey colourings, which creates a much lighter and contemporary mood. The Zebrawood design was taken from a photograph that I took of the most amazing wooden fence in South America. It was weathered, but yet it was weathered in a way that was almost quite zebra-like. And so gave these photos to the artist and said, what can you do with these? And again, using this very sort of interesting mark-making, very subtle brush flick effect, she came up with this wonderful, slightly animal, is it animal or is it wood, is it driftwood? Again, we've done it in a range of colourings, right from the very tiger-like taupe and black through to the obvious black and white, and a much more subtle charcoal, grey and white. And then finally, just because we're loving emerald at the moment, we've done this wonderful bright green and black malachite-esque print. The Vermicelli design is an interesting one because it's one we've taken from our archives. It was an old block print. We have already produced this in our landscape planes collection at a much reduced version. We've reproduced it here in 6 colourways at the original scale, and we've used a rotary screen print, which has meant that in the metallic colourings we've been able to print a larger particle metallic. So the design looks almost glittery, these wonderful sparkling metallic inks. And then we've done 2 colourings in sort of wonderful sort of grey and charcoal, and then of course vermilion coral red. So of course you can't have a curiosity cabinet nowadays without a piece of coral in it. And I particularly love coral. It has such interesting shapes and variations, and so we thought, well, why not put them on a ground of the vermicelli? And we print the vermicelli very subtly, and it just helped to anchor the coral pieces into this wonderful, rich, amazing, beautiful paper. The strand design is another example of interesting mark making that we're playing with in the studio at the moment. And so we have this wonderful dual tone brush mark which echoes the striations and variations that you might find in rocks. It's almost like seams of coal or seams of some precious mineral. It works really well in the softer, more neutral colourings. We've also added a black and white into that, which is a little bit more striking. And then of course we have the pièce de résistance, which is this wonderful emerald and bronze colouring, which really does create a very striking effect on the wall. The mineral design started out as a little semi-plane. So we had these wonderful little flecks, again hand-drawn by an artist in our studio. But I wanted to add an element of geometry into it. The hexagon is a real feature of the natural world, and so we brought in this subtle tiled effect just to give the design a little bit more depth. And so we've arrived at this wonderful, smart, elegant yet subtle paper, which is going to work really well with mood lighting. We've created 5 wonderfully elegant and smart colourings of the mineral design in a range of neutrals and this really rather sumptuous dark charcoal with bronze. So where do I see this collection being used? I see it being used across the board, right through from residential through to bars, restaurants, clubs. It really is quite versatile, and I think there's a real mood at the moment, this whole natural surface effect. In terms of the styling, I felt that this collection works really well with lots of warm furnishings, things that help to soften some of the sharp edges in the collection. I feel that there is a versatility here, and more so because of the colouring. We've been quite careful to offer a broad range of palettes, right from the moody and I suppose a bit more mysterious, right through to the calmer, lighter, more subtle effects of the greys and the whites and the chalks. And yet we've also photographed a softer, paler, maybe more contemporary or pared down minimal type of interior, just to show how they both work equally well. You know, each collection takes a considerable amount of time and effort to produce, sometimes up to 12 months. And it's great for us as designers to be able to see a collection at its final stages and then see how people are using it in their homes, see it on social media, see magazines featuring it, and to know where it came from and to know that, you know, this amazing wall covering might have come from one small pebble from a beach in Patagonia. We're all really excited to see how customers will use Curio on their walls.